I am an evil person, so I've decided to compile a list of reasons as to why I'm worried about the Cybertruck launch, and why you probably should too. Overall, Tesla has had a very reliable track record with delivering production models that are pretty close to the unveiling, but things can go wrong. Things can go unaccording to plan. In fact, Tesla Semi, we thought would be out by 2019, we thought the Roadster would be out last year. Deadlines get changed, production models get changed, and it's safe to say that the Cybertruck is not really like any other product Tesla has unveiled. There's a lot of unique challenges they're likely going to run into with designing a vehicle this large, and also the stainless steel exoskeleton is never really been attempted before in a mainstream vehicle. So yes, the DeLorean was made out of steel, but it was not anywhere close to the same type of steel the Cybertruck is using, and it was also not structural. The fact that the exoskeleton is meant to be carrying the load of the mass for the Cybertruck sounds great in some instances, should help with lowering complexity in manufacturing, but at the same time, we don't know much about the insides of how the Cybertruck is going to be built, and if they do end up building a lot of the fundamental pieces of the truck into the exoskeleton itself, it means that repairability might be somewhat of an issue. Now, I know most of us are probably thinking, repairability? What's there to repair? It's an exoskeleton. That means it can literally never get damaged, right? Well, just because Franz can swing a sledgehammer against the Cybertruck, I don't think necessarily means that it won't have crumple zones, which, by the way, you do want. If the Cybertruck is traveling at a high rate of speed and ends up colliding with something, you would want the front of the truck itself to implode at least a little bit, because you want it to absorb the energy of that impact, not your passengers and yourself on the inside. And if in high-speed collisions there are dents, it might become very, very difficult to replace if the vehicle itself is building a lot of its structure around that exoskeleton, which could, in return, mean that because this vehicle is so different from everything else on the road, insurance rates for it might be somewhat high. Insurance rates for pickup trucks are, in general, typically much higher than traditional vehicles, which is what everyone's kind of used to with Teslas, but because Teslas are so expensive, they also typically tend to have higher insurance costs than vehicles that they are competing with, which Tesla always loves to showcase the after potential savings. It's really more like a $30,000 car or a $25,000 car once you factor in the tax credits or once you factor in the gas savings. The thing is, the insurance rates of those cheaper cars are probably going to be lower though, because those cars have been around longer, the parts for them is more accessible, and they're a cheaper car as a whole, whereas the Tesla, no matter how many tax credits it gets, it's a more higher priced vehicle, and that will result in insurance companies wanting to charge through the roof on insurance, and hopefully Tesla insurance can be fair about that and scale to more states and more parts of the country, but as of right now, it's pretty much only available in California. I've gone down the rabbit hole on Reddit several times with the repairability argument of the Cybertruck, and while in general, yes, basic things like people opening their doors into the truck and paint scratching are things you won't have to worry about, fundamental hardcore collisions are what I'm most curious for, because when you have a large piece of mass like this traveling very, very quickly, running into a solid object or another vehicle, that's when you get all kinds of different responses than just, oh yeah, it's bulletproof to a 9mm bullet. That doesn't mean it's necessarily made of vibranium and it's impossible for it to get damaged. It probably can, it's just a matter of how much force does it need, and when it does get damaged, is the Tesla service department going to have to cut out different pieces of the exoskeleton and weld different steel on, making it look kind of like a Mad Max style vehicle, which honestly would look pretty cool if they just kind of weld the different patches of steel on there that likely wouldn't match the rest of the exoskeleton very well. But depending on how they build the inside of the Cybertruck and how they attach a lot of the cables and components, knowing that the exoskeleton is meant to be somewhat the structure of the vehicle, then that means it might actually be surprisingly easy to total the Cybertruck, even though the basics of sledgehammer running into the side of the vehicle or throwing steel balls or sinks against the hood won't damage it. It's only a matter of time before we actually figure out what's going to cause this thing to break and how repairable it actually becomes. Another thing that has me very, very worried is when Elon Musk responded to a Teslarati article saying that the Cybertruck will not be easy to mass produce. Honestly, I didn't harp on on this enough because I consider myself somewhat of an optimist, probably not so much in today's video, but I, for the longest time, was watching Sandy Munro and just basically assuming that Cybertruck was going to be stainless steel origami lessons and they were going to be able to mass produce this thing like a piece of cake. No problem. There's no paint shop. That means that you can scale production of this thing like no tomorrow. But then hearing Elon talk about how this steel is so different from traditional body panels and that no vehicle has been attempted to be mass produced like this before, it makes me wonder if the Cybertruck was not intended to get as much attention or as much demand as it's actually getting. And perhaps Tesla was like, well, with these 4680 batteries, we're not going to be able to scale them at an insane rate at first. So we want to unveil a cool pickup truck that Franz and Elon can both be really proud of, but we're okay if it's kind of niche, and we're okay if the Cybertruck doesn't become super mainstream because we want to focus on the 4680s first. And originally, if you remember the statements they made way back when, Elon was saying things like, in the future, we might do a more normal, traditional pickup truck for people that think the Cybertruck is a tad too weird or a tad too futuristic. So in my opinion, there was evidence that before the Cybertruck unveiling, they were kind of expecting it to not be the last pickup truck they unveil. If anything, they were somewhat expecting it to be controversial and divisive and that not everybody would love it, but it would have kind of a hardcore fan base that Tesla could cater towards, and then down the road, perhaps when they want to scale pickup truck production to everybody else, they would come out with something that looks a bit more standard, kind of more like an F-150. But then the Cybertruck, of course, did take the internet by storm and became quickly the most heavily demanded vehicle of all time, one of the most memed vehicles out there, and by far the most demanded electric vehicle on the internet. Maybe Tesla bit off more than they can chew and went, oh crap, well now we have like over 600,000 reservations, and we're not exactly sure how easy it's going to be to scale production of this thing. And I'm not saying this is likely, I'm just trying to make today's video the worst case scenario in all ways. Perhaps the exoskeleton ramp and the 4680 ramp ends up being far more complex and a lot more tricky than Tesla originally thought. Kind of like the Tesla Semi unveiling. They thought they were only a year or two away from their battery breakthrough and having that battery day and bringing the Semi to market by 2019 and having lots of them on the road by 2020, and here we are, they're still not out yet. So it's safe to say there have been plenty of times where Tesla thought they'd be able to achieve something and it turned out to be a lot more complicated than they originally thought. I'm really hoping that's not the case, but it's possible that might be the instance with the Cybertruck exoskeleton. Finding a way to mass produce tons and tons of these exoskeletons in a way that has good quality control and high yield rates, and at the same time find a way to mass produce enough 4680 cells, not just for the made in Germany Model Y, but also for the made in Texas Model Y, and also for the Tesla Semi, and also for the Plaid Plus Model S. Semi is going to be a somewhat low volume vehicle, and it sounds like its beta production is going to be at Giga Nevada, so Panasonic wants to start mass producing 4680 cells there later this year anyway, so mass producing a couple Semis probably not too tricky. And Model Y, it's tested, it's proven, people are driving them around, it's a very efficient vehicle both in how much energy it consumes and also how easy it is to mass produce. That's why they're doing it in China, Fremont, and now they're going to do it in Germany and also Texas. Cybertruck, though, due to its sheer size, has to use larger battery packs. Even the single motor Cybertruck is estimated to use somewhere between a 75 to 85 kilowatt hour battery pack, and that's for the $40,000 variant, which I honestly believe there's a chance they may end up scrapping that to give you more concern if some of you out there were planning on buying the Cybertruck because you saw that super low price point of $40,000 and thought, perfect, I can get that. Knowing that Tesla introduced and then scrapped the $35,000 Model 3 and also introduced and scrapped the $40,000 Model Y, and it's no longer available, it makes me think that they might also not go forward with the $40,000 Cybertruck. But if most of you, I'm sure, reserved the dual motor and tri-motor Cybertruck, those are likely going to require far over 100 kilowatt hour battery packs simply to take them 300 or 500 miles because the Cybertruck is so big and stainless steel is not a lightweight material, and the Cybertruck design with all of its sharp edges is not the most aerodynamic shape in the world. It's fairly aerodynamic, but chances are they're probably going to have to adopt side view mirrors as the law hasn't changed yet, and that's not going to help with aerodynamics or range. And this steel as a whole, while very durable and the Tesla armored glass provides its own unique set of benefits, there's a reason they didn't make a Cyber Semi to a certain extent, and it's because of the weight. And knowing how heavy the Cybertruck could potentially be, that means you're gonna need a whole ton of 4680 batteries in the structure of the Cybertruck, and it's not going to be super easy to mass produce those 4680s at a scale that can mass produce Cybertrucks at the rate that probably a lot of us are expecting. So part of me wonders if because the exoskeleton becomes so complicated or becomes heavier than they originally thought, what if Tesla has to completely backtrack and decides that maybe we put too much of an emphasis on durability with the Cybertruck and we should put more of a focus on scalability? And I know a lot of people are against this idea, but I'm just gonna throw it out there right now. What if Tesla chose to make the Cybertruck just about as durable as any other pickup truck for the sake of we need a way to scale production, and trying to make this cold-rolled 30x stainless steel in a massive way is just too complicated, and they decide to just go for more aluminum or steel alloys that aren't as durable and are probably a lot more lightweight, which could help with range. Perhaps the dual-motor Cybertruck actually ends up having a 400-mile range, and the tri-motor variant has a 600-mile range, but you take the loss on not being able to swing a sledgehammer at it, or, you know, the denting is going to be a lot more of a possibility. And if they make it out of aluminum, they're most likely going to have to paint it as well. And in this case, I'd be fine with them just painting it some matte gray finish so that it still looks similar to the prototype, it's just not as durable. And I'm well aware none of us want this to happen. I'm in that same boat too. I want the stainless steel exoskeleton to work and all that, but if things did not go according to plan and they could not find a way to scale production of that exoskeleton, then perhaps they go more forward with a more traditional material, and I hope they can still keep the design the way it is. I'm not suggesting they make a more traditional pickup truck because I think the Cybertruck is so iconic and the design is beloved by so many these days. I think you could still deliver a product that was solid and very practical that people could enjoy, that also gets good range and is not the most durable object in the world, but hey, no pickup truck really is as durable as that Cybertruck prototype is anyhow. Lots of people are getting work done and towing trailers that still have paint on their trucks and still get scratches and dents, but people just kind of live with it and they somewhat accept it. And perhaps making the exoskeleton less structural will make it more repairable in that regard. And I hope you guys understand this is a worst nightmare of mine, not a wish list. I'm not hoping this happens. I'm just saying if things do not go according to plan, this might be a reality we have to live with, and Tesla has to disclose, you know, don't swing a sledgehammer against your truck. You know, they don't have that event up on the website or on Tesla's YouTube channel anymore. They took it down, so they can't really say they're actively promoting this to be a super durable vehicle outside of just the text on the website, which hasn't been updated in nearly 2 years. But I have a feeling personally, even if they go forward with the stainless steel exoskeleton and it's still really durable and can get banged up, I don't think a lot of you future Cybertruck owners are going to be comfortable with people walking up to it and hitting it with a hammer as hard as they can just to prove to themselves that, is this truck really as durable as this guy says it is? No, at the end of the day, this is still a $50,000 to $70,000 pickup truck for a lot of you, and I imagine many of you out there are probably gonna baby it. In fact, in some angles at the Cybertruck unveiling, I noticed there being quite a large scratch as soon as Franz hit it with the sledgehammer, and he was pretty quick to try to rub it out with his t-shirt. And I bet a lot of people are gonna be proud to show their scratches and scuffs on the exoskeleton and let every little scratch that design gets be a story that you can tell in the future. There's still gonna be a lot of people that baby their exoskeleton because they spent a lot of money on that truck and they want to make sure it gets preserved to its original state as best as possible. Just seeing how much people freak out about little paint chips and dents on their current Teslas, I don't believe it's all gonna go away just with the Cybertruck. I believe some people will probably embrace it, but others will likely want it to be preserved as much as possible, even if it is durable. So in that same way, I bet Tesla could still have a fairly successful vehicle, even if the Cybertruck was not as durable as they originally thought, but instead had much better range than they thought. There's a ton of people out there that are towing on great distances, which is not a strength of electric vehicles, and they're going to want every mile of range they can possibly get because they know their range is going to get cut in half as soon as they start towing a big trailer behind the truck. So that suddenly turns your 500-mile Cybertruck into a 250-mile Cybertruck that you dropped over $70,000 on. If they knew that they could sacrifice some of the durability in sake of getting a 600-mile range or a 400-mile range, and now they know when they're towing a huge trailer they can get more like 300 miles on a charge, then they might take that, considering they don't really have a super durable pickup truck right now, but they do have a pickup truck that can tow across country and not have to stop and refuel every 200 miles, which might be an issue that they run into with the Cybertruck. Battery chemistry will improve, I'm sure, and the range is most likely going to be better than what they said with the prototypes, but these are simply concerns I have in the back of my mind at all times. And another thing that I hope I could clear the air on, because when I was talking about tax credits with Teslas, there seemed to be a lot of you guys commenting that you think you locked in your Cybertruck price when you reserved one, and it says you're paying $49,900 or you're paying $69,900. While Tesla may have agreed to lock in your full self-driving arriving price at 7,000 or 8,000 or whatever. If you go into the Cybertruck order terms and conditions, you can see very clear print that does state the actual purchase price might change, and the reservation you put in is merely a ballpark to how much Tesla is expecting the Cybertruck to cost, and they do not legally have to order the price that you put in your reservation for. It's still going to be refundable, and you can still back out of the purchase if you want to, so I don't think this is a bad business practice by any means. I'm simply trying to remind you that the price you pay for your Cybertruck could change by the time it actually comes out. It could end up being $3,000 to $4,000, maybe $5,000 more expensive than you originally thought, and I'm sure most of you are probably willing to pay that, but just keep in mind, if there does end up being a massive point-of-sale tax credit that comes back that the Cybertruck would qualify for, there's a chance Tesla could decide to up the Cybertruck price by another $6,000, $7,000, or $10,000 and still argue that after the tax credit, you still end up kind of paying what you thought you were going to pay back when you reserved it. So pay attention to the fine print on those types of details. The Cybertruck price is not finalized, even though Tesla says it's going to cost a certain amount. Just like the Model 3 and Model Y, the actual prices can vary quite a bit, and there could be lots of manufacturing issues they run into that could result in the Cybertruck being delayed or not as great as maybe we were hoping it would be. And I really, really hope I'm wrong on this one, guys. I want the Cybertruck production model to be as close as the prototype as possible. I hope the law changes so that they can not use side view mirrors on the final model, and I hope it's as practical and as durable and better than Tesla was anticipating, and I hope they can scale production of the exoskeleton best they can. I'm just trying to fill you guys in on some of my biggest worries for its launch, and I hope by setting low expectations we can have a happy day when Tesla exceeds those expectations. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care.